My name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. Today I am reviewing Burned Asset by Jennifer R Donahue. This is the sixth novella in the Run with the Hunted series, and is the first where you really need to know what happened in the previous one. Usually this series is pretty good at remaining episodic, all about a trio of heist specialists in this semi-futuristic world. Like, it's still Earth, like it's still recognizably America, but the technology is a bit more advanced than what we have here, and it alternates between points of view. Today we are back to Dolly's POV for book 6, and this is the first one that directly is playing off the events of the previous, and is the first one that essentially has to deal with the fallout. In all the previous books, the trio gets away pretty clean without a lot of issues. You know, they're still on the run from that same strange government agency, but for the most part, they never really have to deal with any of the previous heists gone wrong. But this one is a little bit different. So I am going to be spoiling some things. I will have my links for the other reviews down in the description below. But let's jump into this one. This one is definitely more emotional than a lot of the other ones. It deals directly with their quote-unquote kidnapping of the government agent that Bristol is basically in love with at this point. And they are holed up in one of Bristol's safe houses, which is essentially a place that looks like a hotel but isn't. And in essence, they're waiting. They're waiting for the dude's secret government buddies to come in and do something. They know it's going to happen. Dolly is definitely the most on edge. She's waiting for it to go down. She knows it's going to go down. And so a lot of the book is basically spent with her paranoia. This one is also kind of nice because it calls in a lot of like friends that you've seen over the course of this series, like Marquise and Nikolai and Butler, all from previous books, come back as sort of a, we know shit's about to hit the fan, we gotta rally the forces type of move, and I really liked that. But more than anything, this is the one where you see Dolly's like soldier trauma coming into effect. And I like that idea. I like the idea of directly playing off the consequences of the previous one. I liked how much more it was focused on emotions, and you finally got to see more about the group, because for the longest time in this series, it really felt like Dolly and Bits were friends, but I couldn't tell if those two and Bristol were close. You know, like, there was always a degree of separation based on the way that Bristol holds herself, because Bristol is very much more the artifice, the aesthetics, the guile. Even with her own team, there's always this element of separation between them. And you usually get the gist that for the most part, Bristol is the closest thing to a leader they have. They do take turns doing different things, but like, Bristol is doing most of the work in like setting up their heists. But this is the first one where it actually reveals how they met, and it's not shown, it's just told, with Dolly telling the story as well as a couple other stories. But in general, it was kind of strange because the writing style of this series is incredibly fast-paced and does not hold the reader's hand at all. In fact, in a lot of cases, you kind of have to reread a lot of the dialogue just to fully understand what they're saying to each other, because they're so glib and so sarcastic and so speaking with hidden subtext, which does track for people who are used to having to be sneaky and be aware that they may be being like monitored, like that kind of thing. But the problem is, while that fast-paced glibness works for fast-paced heist books, it doesn't work as well when you need the emotion to be there more. Specifically in this book, Butler and Dolly, who are basically kind of romantic interests, are definitely supposed to be like getting closer and closer, but it's kind of strange in how it's presented, because it tends to focus on all the things Butler would like to do to protect Dolly but can't. So he is kind of almost kept at an arm's length via the narrative. But it's also strange to me because I've read this author's novel, which was a Shakespeare retelling and was like all emotion, because it's a Shakespeare retelling of Hamlet, and that has to be all emotion. So like, I know the author can do it, I think the writing style is a purposeful choice for this series, but again, as a result, the emotions almost kind of come like almost muted, like almost like it's hiding behind the glibness and the fast pace. There's very few moments in the book where they really just chill, and again, it's partially because this is a novella series. The books are like 120 pages or less, so you can't fit a lot in that. But this is definitely the one where you see the most of Dolly's trauma. You see the most of the group as a whole functioning unit. It was the first time you see Bristol kind of lose her shit, which that was fun. I always like it when the normally put together character finally loses it. You also get a little bit more of Dolly's bisexuality. I liked that part a lot. And in general, I gave this book 4 stars. Really liked the concept, really liked the idea that it is directly handling the fallout from the previous book. The end felt slightly anticlimactic for me, but I get why they went with it like that. And in general, this is still a great pick if you want a nice, fast read with some sci-fi. The sci-fi is not too severe if you are new to sci-fi, although I figure you probably would already know that if you've read the other books in this series. I know some people watch my reviews literally just to watch my reviews, and I love that I'm that interesting. But seriously, if you've decided to read this series by now, you probably have already found out that it's pretty accessible sci-fi, and it continues to be that way. I do like that it makes use of a current new technology, but now a regular thing because Bristol has a spray-on dress, which as of right now is still like a totally fancy avant-garde special thing they do that one time on the runway and is not at all for commercial use, but in this world it is. So I like how the author is very clearly looking at current technology and then extrapolating off that. So like, take this technology that exists in some limited capacity in 2023, expand it, and it's in this future world as a regular product. I like that concept. I like that kind of sci-fi, even though I don't read that kind a lot. The idea of taking actual real world technology and just expanding it and kind of guessing where it will be in the future. I really like that concept. I would like a little bit more, like, yes, there are emotions, but I don't know, some change in the writing style so that it doesn't feel like the emotions have a layer on top of them. I don't know even if I'm explaining that exactly correctly. That's just the vibe I got. I've also been really out of it lately. So I accept that this might just be me. But regardless, we'd highly suggest this one for the sci-fi fans and for anyone that's already been reading this series. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.